Last week we began thinking about the disadvantages of not recalling death, which implies, together with it, the shortness of our lifespan, how quickly it goes, how we can't do a rewind and live something again, doing it differently. And so that awareness of our own mortality makes each day of our precious human life very vital, very vibrant. And we don't waste our time. So it's just interesting to check between hearing that teaching then and 1 week later now. To what extent did we remember the teaching, and to what extent did it influence how we live? Or did we just hear the teaching about death, close our notebooks, forget it, and go about our regular activities without the mind changing at all? So by some stroke of good fortune, we didn't die in that intervening week. So we have another opportunity now to listen to the Dharma, to try and integrate it with our heart and mind. So that we use our time to get ourselves out of samsara and to create the causes for awakening, full awakening, so we can help other living beings get out of samsara as well. So if we've forgotten that motivation, if we've forgotten our own mortality in the intervening week, then let's renew them and renew our determination to remember these things and practice them in our daily lives. Okay, so last week we started on the disadvantages of not remembering death, and that we forget to practice the Dharma, we procrastinate practicing it. Even when we do practice it, then it gets mixed in with the 8 worldly concerns. So that's where we were last time, right? Smack in the middle of the 8 worldly concerns. So we had gone through the 8 worldly concerns, and I just want to go over briefly some of the disadvantages of them, because the more we think of the disadvantages of something, the more energy we have to overcome it. Whereas when we don't see the disadvantage of something, then we just cruise along, and don't do anything. Okay, so disadvantages of 8 worldly concerns. I'll go through some. I'm sure you can think of some more. Okay, so the pleasure that we experience from the 8 worldly concerns is basically all created by superstition. This is Lama Yeshe's phrase, superstition, make-believe. You're superstitious, so you think that sense pleasure, happiness, and fame, and lots of friends, and all of this is real happiness. Yeah, that's, because superstition, it believes in things that aren't true, right? So, the mind that thinks that the worldly concerns bring real happiness is superstitious. Yeah, because the happiness doesn't last. And if you just look in the intervening week, from last week to this week, we've had a lot of pleasures, but none of them have lasted. They've all disappeared. Yeah. And we've had to go through a lot to get those pleasures, but then they actually betray us in the end by vanishing. And what we have left instead is the negative karma that we created in order to get the pleasure or defend somebody else, defend against somebody else, ruining our pleasure, or clobbering somebody who insulted us or accused us or whatever it is, So all week long, kind of defending the I, the self. Yeah, my reputation, my image. Yeah, how people talk to me. Do they respect me? Do they give me what I want? Yeah, again and again, And so, it doesn't last. It creates a lot of negative karma. Okay, and the mind that is attached to the pleasure of only this life, that's the essential meaning of the 8 worldly concerns, the pleasure of only this life. That mind is like boiling water. It's not peaceful and serene, is it? It's, I want this, I want that. What do I have to do to get this? What do I have to do to protect somebody else from taking that away from me? Okay, so, we're dissatisfied. We connive to get the things we want. Even if we get them, we don't feel secure, but rather we're anxious about losing them. Yeah. I remember talking to one friend of mine who went back to graduate school in her 40s, and she was so nervous about, doing well on her exams, and she came out the top of the class. But instead of making her feel self-confident and relaxed because she did so well, she became more anxious, because how can she possibly keep that up in the next semester? So even success breeded anxiety. Yeah. Okay. Also, this attachment to the 8 worldly concerns makes our mind go up and down and up and down. I think you can see this. Yeah. Lama Yeshe talked about our yo-yo mind. I got this. Oh, I lost that. I'm gonna get this. Oh, that got taken away. Up and down, up and down. Yeah. So kind of totally emotionally unstable. Sounds like we're crazy people, isn't it? Yeah? Yeah? Usually aren't the people that we say have mental problems, aren't they like that? Yeah? Totally imbalanced. Can't stay smooth, always one extreme or the other. Yeah? So we're not so different. Okay? Also, under the influence of the 8 worldly concerns, when we reach out to help others, the help, in quotation marks, that we give them actually is service to our own ego. Yeah? Because we help them so that we look good, so that they accept us, so they don't criticize us, so we don't get in trouble. Yeah? So whenever we help, and the 8 world attachment to the happiness of this life is involved, then it just becomes work for the self-centered thought. Okay, And, we help, but like, where's my thank you? Where's my appreciation? Are you going to give me a gift? Yeah. Are you going to praise me for being so kind and helping you? Do you know that now you owe me a favor? Okay. Then another disadvantage is that, through this attachment and the anger that we experience from not getting what we want, or being separated from what we want, or getting what we don't want, then we create the cause for unfortunate rebirths. Yeah. So I love that quotation by Shantideva where he says, other sentient beings cannot send us to the lower realms. Yeah. Usually we go, in ordinary worldly things, people go to war to destroy the enemy. Yeah. Thinking that the enemy is, whoever is on the other side, ISIS or whoever it is, that's the enemy, and if we destroy them, yeah. And Shantideva says, that's just killing somebody who's going to die anyway. Yeah. And you're totally missing the point of the real enemy, which is the self-centered thought, yeah, the mind of attachment. Because other living beings cannot send us to the lower realms, but our mind of self-centeredness does that very easily. And when you think about it, it's true, isn't it? What we do under the influence of attachment to this life creates the cause for so much suffering, even though we think that we're trying to get happiness. And that's the tragic thing about it. When we look around in the world and everybody's running around trying to be happy, and it's Friday night, so you can do fun things on Friday, then you have the weekend, Saturday night is tomorrow night, and Saturday and Sunday, and you get to sleep late, and you get to go visit your friends, and you get to go play golf, and you're so excited there's a weekend, and everybody's working so hard to have happiness. Yeah? And, they've had so many weekends before, and is Monday morning a joy? Yeah. Is Sunday evening a joy? No. Yeah. The whole time it was basically spent struggling for happiness and accumulating credit card debt and accumulating negative karma. When you think about it, it's really a tragedy. All these people running around trying to be happy and creating the cause for the opposite. Okay, another disadvantage of attachment, to the happiness of this life, is that we just get more and more habituated with it. So next lifetime too, attachment to the happiness of this life, with our whole mind focused on, I want what I want when I want it. Yeah. The whole mind focused on me, I, my, and mine. Yeah. Then also this kind of attachment, it blocks us from having any realizations on the path, especially the Mahayana path. Yeah. Because instead of meditating, we spend our time working for the happiness of this life. We never quite get to the meditation cushion because we're afraid that, the meditation cushion or the Dharma teachings, that might bring me some suffering, so I'm going to avoid that and do what I like instead. But actually, then we miss out on creating the causes for happiness and just, spend our time lounging around thinking we're relaxing. Okay, another disadvantage, this attachment to the 8 worldly concerns, is it creates zillions of obstacles when we try and cultivate serenity. So we're trying to develop concentration. what do you get distracted by? Yeah? What are your primary distractions? Isn't it mostly to things that you like, that you want? Yeah. Okay, sometimes we fall asleep. Sometimes we get distracted because we're angry at somebody. But most of the time, we sit there and, you know, the mind goes off on some daydreaming, wonderful trip, isn't it? Yeah? Instead of visualizing Tara and, you know, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and making offerings to them, we visualize Buddha Boy and making offerings to him. Yeah? We just get completely caught up in that stuff. Can't develop concentration. Then, because all this attachment to the happiness of this life is also the basis of getting angry at people who impede us from getting what we want, then our anger also increases. Yeah, because the more attachment we have, the more anger we're going to have. The two go together. Yeah, because the more we're exaggerating the good qualities of someone or something, clinging to it, wanting it, holding it, then the more upset we're going to get when we're separated from it. Yeah, the attachment and anger go together. So our anger increases, and the difficulty with anger, aside from ruining our relationships and making us unhappy, is that it destroys our merit. So we may have spent a long time trying to create merit, and we get angry, and it burns the merit. Okay? So when you really sit down and meditate very strongly about the defects of attachment to the happiness of this life, the defects of the 8 worldly concerns, you know, then when you meditate strongly on that repeatedly, then that stays in your mind, and, you know, you're really aware of it all day, like, oh, you know, if my mind gets carried away with this stupidagio, look what's going to happen to me. Yeah, and then that vibrant awareness of the defects really helps us to restrain ourselves. Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, when there's a hot stove and you know how much it hurts to touch the hot stove, then afterwards you stay away from the hot stove. Yeah, so it's the same kind of mechanism. Okay, then so thinking about the disadvantages of the 8 worldly concerns is one antidote to them. Yeah, thinking about the disadvantages to anything is the antidote to it. Okay, then in addition, there's some other antidotes. Yeah, well, so of course, you know, for the attachment side, then to, you know, the 4 attachment sides of the 8, then to think about impermanence, transience, that none of those things last long. You know, for attachment to reputation, remember, reputation is just somebody else's thought, and it doesn't really do us any good at all. For attachment to praise and approval, it's like, you know, whose praise and approval am I wanting? The praise and approval given by some other being in samsara whose mind is overwhelmed by ignorance. Yeah. Why in the world am I seeking the praise of somebody whose mind is overwhelmed by ignorance? That's such a dumb thing to do. You know, if I want somebody to praise me, it should be the wise. I seek the wise ones to praise or approve. But, you know, some ordinary sentient being whose mind is full of superstition and hallucination, wow, you know, what good is praise from them going to do me? Okay. Then this one, this is a Lama Zopa Rinpoche one, If I follow the 8 worldly concerns, I'm no better than an animal. Sit with that one for a while. It's really true. Help our friends, harm our enemies. Yeah, eat, sleep, go to the bathroom. Yeah, attend teachings and nod off during the teachings. Yeah, forget everything afterwards. Yeah. Then it's also helpful to think that the objects we see that we have so much attachment for or dejection, about, that these are all projections of the deluded mind. So instead of thinking, oh, somebody blamed me, oh, what a horrible person I am, I must be totally awful because somebody blamed me, and oh, this and that, nobody loves me, and and to just see, all of that is just a projection of the deluded mind, a projection of the mind that grasps at inherent existence, a projection of the self-centered mind. Yeah, it's a made-up story by a deluded mind. Yeah. But we take it really serious, we really believe in it. I was thinking, when my dad was old, he had some dementia and Alzheimer's, and he lived in a town called Newport Beach. And he said, oh, there's 2 Newport beaches. Yeah. And I live in this one, and there's another one that looks exactly like this one. And sometimes they take me there to a house that looks like my house, but it's not my house. It's in the other Newport Beach. Mm-hmm. Yeah? So, if you've ever, I don't recommend ever trying to talk to somebody who's demented or who has Alzheimer's, because there's no way you can change their mind. They believe this completely. My father totally believed it. And, nothing could be done about that. Well, this is exactly, and the second Newport Beach was a total projection. It didn't exist. So, too, the objects that we put more value on than they have, so that we get attached to them, the objects that we project bad qualities on that they don't have, so that we develop anger and hatred, all of that is like my dad envisioning a second Newport Beach. It doesn't exist anywhere. It's total projection of the deluded mind. Yeah. So essentially, we're just like the people who have Alzheimer's, because we're believing in all of our projections and thinking that they're true. Yeah, it's pretty astonishing when you think of it that way. You think, no, she's just saying that. It's not true. When I get angry, there is something real there to get angry at. And my anger's justified. And that person did do that. And it is important that I correct them and stop them. And when I am attached to something, that object, that person really does have all those good qualities. I'm sure even my friends agree. So it's not my projection. Yeah? And we're totally convinced in what we perceive, even though it's made up by the deluded mind. Yeah, really not so different from somebody with Alzheimer's. Think about it. Yeah, true or not true? It's kind of scary when we, because we're so used to our projections. We've never question them. We think they're totally true. You know, we're not demented. We're normal. Yeah.
I was thinking this week, Venerable, about that, but just thinking about when we fall in love.
Yeah.
And really, who we think the other person is just totally, there you go.
Yep. Yep. When you fall in love, the person you fall in love with is not the person standing in front of you. It's an image you created of them. Yeah? This perfected image. And we think they really are that. And then when the cracks appear, we wonder what happened. Yeah? Because we're sure when we fall in love that they're really that wonderful. Aren't we? Yeah, we've all fallen in love. We know what that's like. Yeah.
Even their dirty socks are cute.
Yeah. Yeah, even their dirty socks are cute. You know, I was talking with one mother, you know, and an example of, you know, attachment to children. Yeah. Mothers don't see their kids' poop as dirty. You know, your kid's poop is not dirty, you know. Your kid's bottom is something very soft and precious. Yeah? I mean, this is what attachment does to us. Okay. Another way to oppose the 8 worldly concerns is to change the thing that we're attached to into something disagreeable, which maybe just means see it as it really is. Yeah? So especially when there's sexual attachment, all it is somebody filled with goo, isn't it? A bag of skin stuffed with goo. And that's not exaggerating, that's what it really is, isn't it? You know, you look at somebody's body, oh, like, that guy's so good. You know, but if his skin opened up and you saw the insides, then what? Yeah. I mean, some people faint when they see the insides of other people. Okay, I mean, that's how out of touch with reality our mind is. Another antidote is to think, you know, when we're attached, that there's really nothing new in samsara. So even if I get this thing, it's not going to change very much. I've had it many times before in samsara. So, you know, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And I know what works for me really well is, you know, if I'm really craving something, so I'll take it, then I'll make the whole scene and, you know, embellish it and, you know, just create this deliberately, not like a daydream where I'm, you know, off in La La Land, but deliberately, you know, play out the whole scene, and then at the end of it, say, and then. You know? And it's really like that, yeah? I play out that whole scene, it's marvelous, and then? Is that really going to make me happy? Yeah? I got what I wanted, I created the perfect whatever. Is that really going to make me happy? Finally, the person who I've wanted to approve of me and praise me for years and years and years, finally they did. Is that really going to change anything? Okay, so it's kind of like throwing water on a fire, you know? It's like the attachment just, yeah. Okay, and then of course meditating on emptiness and seeing that the object is dependent on its parts and so on. That cuts our attachment to it as well. Okay. Lots of meditation to do, huh? The thing is that what is so wonderful is that combating the eight worldly concerns is real Dharma practice. Because the line of demarcation between what is Dharma and what is not Dharma is the presence or absence of the eight worldly concerns. If the eight worldly concerns, any of the eight, are present in our mind, although we may do something and look like a fantastic Dharma practitioner, there's no Dharma practice going on. If our mind is free from the eight worldly concerns, we may look scraggly and dirty, but there's real Dharma practice happening there. Yeah? So all these things on the outside that we sometimes get enamored with as, as if they're the real meaning of Dharma practice, not necessarily. It depends on the mind of the person who's doing the action. Yeah? So, you may rise high up in the ranks of the monastic hierarchy or high up in the ranks of the Dharma hierarchy. You may have all sorts of titles. You may have a great following of people trotting after you, praising you. But if the mind is still enamored with the eight worldly concerns, there's no Dharma practice there. It's all phony baloney. And I think this is one of the things that really attracted me to Buddhism at the very beginning was you can pretend to be a hypocrite, but it really doesn't do any good. When you're a hypocrite, the only person who's really getting harmed is oneself. Yeah? Because of karma, because we're the ones who create karma. Yeah? And karma can't be seen by the eye. Our motivation is the chief thing that influences whether the karma we create is virtuous or not virtuous. Other people can't see that. Yeah, so we can put on, a lovely external veneer and look really holy and fool a lot of people and wind up getting born in the lower realms because our mind was very far away from the Dharma. Yeah, or we see some people who are incredibly humble practitioners who nobody looks at, who are like really wonderful, wonderful practitioners, but you wouldn't notice it from looking at the outside. And I really think here of one of my teachers, Geshe Yeshe Topten. He came to DFF, some of you, So, he was one of those practitioners. He used to meditate in one of the huts above Dharamsala, and one of his disciples brought him food every week. And his disciple told me that never once did he see Geshe-la's Dorjian bell or tantric picture at all. Geshe-la kept those things completely private. Nothing was displayed. At least not when the attendant was there. And Geshe-la always wore these old robes that, kind of uneven, and his old socks that were usually falling down, and these scruffed up shoes, and a few whiskers, And people would walk by him in the street, or he would go doing korwa. Nobody would pay him any attention. But he was a really renounced, true Dharma practitioner. So we have to, remember the demarcation between what is Dharma and what isn't the external appearance, it's the internal state of mind, particularly the presence or absence of the 8 worldly concerns. Okay. So I thought, in conjunction with this,
Question.
mm-hmm.
Someone asked, does it mean we don't create the causes for happiness even if we are practicing generosity with some form of 8 worldly concern?
Maybe you create a little bit of good karma, a teeny bit for being generous, but basically it's done in the service of ego. Like if you're generous, because you want everybody to know how rich you are, you want to be known as in the Dharma Center as a big benefactor, or you want to, be able to sit close to the Lama by, donating a lot. That's all worldly motivation. You don't really create much virtue from that. Maybe a teeny bit because you're giving to something, the power of the holy object, you're giving to something that's Dharma. But the mind isn't Dharma. Rather shocking. Huh? Yeah, next question.
So since the 8 worldly concerns come into the mind so easily, if we keep bringing our mind back to a good motivation, is that still not a Dharma practice?
No, well, think about it. Every time you bring yourself back to a good motivation, what do you think? Is that Dharma practice or not? If that isn't Dharma practice, I don't know what is. Okay? Overcoming the 8 worldly concerns is, doing that is real Dharma practice. Yeah. So they love, there's always this story, I like this story so much, of the person who is, in the East they have these big stupas. So this one old man is like bowing to the stupa and bowing and saying, the 35 Buddhas and bowing. And Lama Atisha saw him and said, "Oh, it's very nice you're bowing to the Buddha, but it would be better if you practice the Dharma." So the man said, because he thought that was practicing the Dharma. So then he started circumambulating instead, circumambulating the stupa with his mala, probably was a really nice mala, like one of those green glittery ones like you used to have, and saying, "Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, look at my mala, Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme." And then Atisha came again and said, "Oh, very nice that you're chanting and circumambulating, but it would be better if you practiced the Dharma." So then he sat down, he took out his pecha, the Tibetans have the long, narrow things, and he starts reciting, in the scriptures, blah, 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 blah. They can go so fast, it's unbelievable. And then Lama Atisha came by again and said, "Very nice you're reciting things. It would be better if you practiced the Dharma." And the man was like, "Okay, what's going on here? What does practice the Dharma mean?" And Lama Atisha said, "Free yourself from the 8 worldly concerns." Yeah, that's it. So, opposing the 8 worldly concerns, you don't have to wear special clothes or have a pretty mala or do any kind of external display. Yeah, the real Dharma practice is combating the negative states of mind that we fall into. Yeah, so every time you get angry and you take a time out and you really sit and process it, subdue your anger, see that it was completely a made-up, exaggerated story, and, get rid of this attachment to the self and so on, and make your mind, more balanced. That's real Dharma practice, because we actually transformed our mind. Yeah. We can do all sorts of activities that look like the Dharma, but if our mind doesn't transform, then they aren't Dharma. This is really very sobering when you think about it. Yeah? Because how much time do we spend in doing things that look like the Dharma, but our mind is in la-la land somewhere? Okay. So I thought what I'd do, because I don't think I've ever gone through the 10 innermost jewels of the Kadamba tradition with you.
You did it a long time ago.
Yeah?
I think the three principal aspects of the path.
Okay. Long time ago, huh?
Over 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, pre-Abbey.
Vi offer den safe. Vi offer den safe in the online program.
Yeah. So I really like these. When you hear them, they sound very extreme. But I find it very helpful to meditate on them because they sound so extreme. Yeah. That even if I, just to even imagine what it would be like to feel the way these 10 feelings are being described. Even to imagine that really transforms the mind. Yeah? So I thought I'd go through them. So in the 10 innermost jewels of the Kadamba tradition, there's 4 trusting acceptances, 3 Vajra convictions, which are also called 3 abandonments, and there is 3 mature attitudes. Okay, so the 4 trusting acceptances. Okay, the first one, as our innermost outlook on life, being willing to accept the Dharma with total trust. Okay, so just imagine what that would be like. To really reflect, we have this precious human life. Death is certain. Its time of death is uncertain. At death time, body, friends, possessions, none of those things help. Dharma is the only thing that will help us at the time of death. So it's the only thing that makes sense during our life. Yeah? And so you think like that, you follow that step by step, and then, as our innermost outlook on life, being willing to accept the Dharma with total trust. So really making the Dharma the cornerstone of our life. Not, well, I want to be normal like everybody else and have some worldly pleasure and do Dharma. Let's have 50-50. The Kadamba masters say 50-50 is not going to work. Okay? I mean, it's quite extreme, but it's really true. And they're saying, look, 50-50 is not going to work. Yeah? If you can really devote your whole life to the Dharma and really trust the Dharma, then you'll get some real practice done. Yeah? If we're trying to bargain, can I do 50-50? Can I have a little bit of praise and reputation for this Dharma activity? Then that's not going to work. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one, as our innermost attitude towards the Dharma, being willing to accept with total trust, even becoming a beggar. But you don't understand, I'm a Westerner. I can't live on the street. I need my comfortable bed. I need 3 meals a day. I need clean clothes. I've got to be respected. I cannot sit on the street. I cannot be a beggar. It's too dirty. I will get sick. I will be uncomfortable. People will look down on me. I want to practice the Dharma like normal people do in comfort. Okay? So here in these innermost jewels, it isn't saying that we have to outwardly live this way. It's saying to have a mindset and a conviction and trust in the Dharma that we would be willing to live like that if that's what happened. Okay? Yeah, so the first one, really willing to trust the Dharma completely. And the second one, as our attitude towards the Dharma, being willing to accept with total trust, really becoming a beggar, if that's what we had to do in order to practice the Dharma. Yeah, so how do we get our mind to think like that? To think that it's more important to work for the long-term benefit than for the short-term things, yeah? And so, generating bodhicitta, generating renunciation, much more important than seeking the happiness of this life. So the thing is, when we meditate like this, if we can get deep in our meditation, then it conquers the fear we have of not having the essentials for practice. Yeah? Because we can want to practice, but sometimes our mind gets really afraid. Yeah? What do I do if I don't have health care? What do I do if I don't have enough protein? Yeah? Oh, I'm going to get sick if I don't have enough protein. I'll go to a cave, but I've got to take my Ensure with me and my protein shakes with me. Yeah? And I've got to take a nice warm blanket, because if I get sick, finished, If I get sick, then I'll die, then I won't be able to practice Dharma at all. So I've got to have a nice blanket. But the blankets aren't enough, so I really need a heater. Yeah? And not one of those cheap heaters that's going to break. I want a really good heater. Yeah? So, and then I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and I need this. And it's just practical. There's no attachment. I'm just doing it to stay healthy so I can practice the Dharma. Okay? But do you see how much anxiety is behind how we try and stay healthy to practice the Dharma? Just full of fear, full of anxiety. Like, well, what happens if I don't have, no ability, no courage. The mind has no courage. Yeah? We're total wimps, If I become a beggar, it'll just hurt my parents too much. They've already been, it's really stretched in seeing me ordained. I can't do that to them. If I'm a beggar, I'm a street person. Oh, that would be terrible for my family. So out of compassion for them, I can't do that, sorry. Yeah. So again, we're not saying that we have to become a beggar. What we're doing is trying to work with the mind that is so attached and so anxious and so fearful, and by cultivating these kinds of thoughts, and really seeing the importance of the Dharma, so much so that the Dharma is much more important than, a comfortable bed and a roof over our head. And if it came to that, yes, we're happy to give those things up in order to have our freedom to practice. Okay? So thinking like this helps us break the anxiety, the attachment. Then the third one, okay, is as our innermost attitude towards becoming a beggar, being willing to accept with total trust even having to die. Becoming a beggar is bad enough. I'm cold, I'm hungry, people look down at me, my family is embarrassed. But what if I die? What if I starve to death? Yeah? I don't have enough food, I'm starving. Okay? So, again, look at the fear and the anxiety that's there. Now, so that even if we try and go do long retreat personally, we can't do it because we're so afraid. We're running down to town all the time to get ourselves some digestive biscuits because we're afraid of what we're going to do, if we starve. Okay? So again, how do we get to that thing of, the innermost attitude towards becoming a beggar, being willing even to die, if that's what it entails? Okay? To remember, if we're afraid of starving, remember that we've never given up our life for the Dharma. We've given up our life in previous lives for all sorts of stupid things. Out of pride, out of arrogance. How many people fight and kill each other because somebody insulted them? Somebody called them a name? Somebody criticized their mother? Somebody blamed them? What was the thing in, the McDonald's and the whatever it was?
Hatfields and McCoys.
Yeah, well, who
Hatfields and
McCoys, totally killing each other over honor. Yeah? Romeo and Juliet, stupid people. Really, it was all over honor, wasn't it? You look at Shakespeare's plays, so many people killing other people, killing themselves, all out of honor. What is honor? But to some people, their honor is more important than their food, more important than anything else. If you've done prison work, you see, the guys are like, do not come in front of me in the chow line because, I'm going to pull a shank on you and stab you if you do that. You cannot disrespect me. And of course, people who aren't in prison, maybe they don't have a shank, but they do similar kinds of things to harm somebody. Look at what is going on in the presidential debate. Are they debating over policies, or are they calling each other names and getting inflamed over what name somebody called them? Yeah? Okay. So to really think, if we're afraid of dying of starvation, I've never given my life up for the Dharma. In past lives, I've died for many ridiculous causes. If this lifetime I die for the Dharma, at least it's for a good cause. Yeah? So, they say it's better to die having the Dharma than surrounded by tons of wealth. Yeah? And if you think about it, it's true, isn't it? If we die with the Dharma, if we can control our mind at the time of death and go through the death absorptions and into the clear light and realize emptiness, and, then come out in the Sambhogakaya. That would be great. Yeah, but if you die surrounded by a lot of wealth, then you die afraid of being separated from all your wealth. When I lived in Dharamsala, there was one lady that I knew. She could sometimes cook lunch for a few of us, one Tibetan lady. And I heard that when her father died, because her father was a refugee from, he left in 59 or 60. And he had some gold when he fled Tibet. And he buried the gold somewhere, I don't know which route he came out, but somewhere in India he buried the gold. And on his deathbed, he was trying to tell his children where the gold was buried. Yeah? Can you imagine dying, worrying about some gold that you buried years ago, haven't seen since, but you must make sure your children can find it? Yeah? Or imagine dying, you have all the luxury in the world. Rich people die surrounded by luxury. Yeah? It doesn't really matter, does it? You still die, the mind's still uncontrolled. Yeah, so much better to have the Dharma when we die than to have wealth. So really meditating like this and seeing the truth in that. Okay? So like I said, even though it seems very extreme, the more we can train the mind and even think like that, the more it really sets us very clearly on the path. Yeah, and cuts off a lot of worry and so on. And then the fourth of the 4 trusting acceptances, as our innermost attitude towards death, being willing to accept with total trust, even having to die friendless and alone in an empty cave. Okay? So we get ourselves, you see each one of these is becoming more in depth, isn't it? Okay, first I gotta trust Dharma, wholeheartedly. Then, trust it even if it means becoming a beggar. Then trust it even if I have to die. And then, even if I have to die alone in poverty, and then the mind goes, ah, you can hear it, can't you? The mind going, I don't want to die like that. But actually, if, we're not sure we're going to live till old age, yeah, and yet we prepare for it. If we practice the Dharma, then whenever we die, it's okay. If we don't practice the Dharma, we may or may not live to old age. Even if we do, it's not going to be a happy old age and it's not going to be a happy death. Okay? And if we practice well, also we won't mind dying alone. If we don't practice, even the whole world is surrounding us when we die. There's absolutely nothing they can do to help us. Yeah? If we haven't practiced, it's not like, anybody's going to be able to come in and all of a sudden make us realize emptiness on our deathbed when we haven't thought about it before. Okay? And so along that line also, when we die, to not worry about how people treat our body afterwards. Yeah? Some people don't want to die alone, and they want to make sure their body's really respected after death. Okay? But if you think about it, yeah, do you really want to die with all your relatives surrounding you? Yeah? All your friends and relatives surrounding you, going, please don't die. I love you so much. Don't leave. We can't live without you. You know, and they're sobbing and they're hysterical. And you're just trying to, you know, die in peace. And all these people are carrying on around you. Yeah. Oh, go get her this, go get her that, call the nurse, call the doctor. Why aren't they here doing this test and that test and this and that? I mean, it's hysteria in the room because everybody's trying to save you from dying when it's very clear that you're going to die. Do you really want all those people there? Yeah? I wrote, because at the Abbey we all did our, what do you call it? Life?
Advanced directives.
Yeah, advanced directives. I said, do not contact my family when I'm dying. I don't want them there. Too much chaos. Yeah? And then, you know, some people really worry about what's going to happen to their body after they die. They want to be nice, to look nice, to be laid out, to be respected. If you die in another country, they want, you know, their body to be put in a casket and flown back over to where they want to be buried or whatever. You know, I mean, I'm just happy, just chop this thing up and put it out there for the turkey vultures. That's good enough for me, you know. Why all this business about, you know, what they do with the body? And yeah, I've always found it quite interesting, you know. People are very focused on treating the bodies respectfully as, you know, and if you look at it, well, that's the only thing they have left of the person that they respected and loved. So they put that all on the body. But if you really look at it, what's so good about a corpse? Does the corpse need to be respected and treated nicely? No. It's a dead bunch of vegetable goo. That's all it is. Yeah. I'm sure some people will be very offended. You know? No, my body's not going to be a dead bunch of vegetable goo. But really, that's what it is.
What does the Tibetan do with the dead bodies?
In old Tibet, they would take them on a hill and chop them up and feed them to the vultures. Now in India, they cremate them. They usually have build a wood pyre and put the body on top of it. Okay, so those are the 4 trusting acceptances. And very good when you meditate on them, you know, to really go slowly and try and make your mind feel, you know, what it says. Follow, you know, because I explained how to get to each thought. So try and follow that and see if your mind can get there. And even if it can't imagine what it would feel like, yeah, to feel that. Okay. Then the 3 Vajra convictions, also called the 3 abandonments. So first one is to go ahead without consideration for what others think. I can't do that. My whole life revolves around what others think of me. I do 10 backflips to please other people. I need to look good. I need for them to think I'm wonderful. I can't do anything without taking into consideration what other people think of me. Yeah? Are we like that? Yeah? All day, all night, making our decisions according to what other people are going to think about us. Yeah, and here they're saying to go ahead with our practice without even considering what other people think of us. So to abandon the influence of friends and relatives who discourage us from practice, abandon attachment to reputation. So, just have the mind set on transforming the mind, on attaining realizations. That's what I'm doing, I'm hearing, thinking, and meditating to do that. And you can say what you want about me. It really doesn't matter to me. Because I know what's important in my life. Yeah. And this is an interesting one here, because it's also called the 3 abandonments. So what are you abandoning with this first one? The influence of friends and relatives who discourage us from practice. Okay? Now, here at the Abbey, we have a lot of people who come with interest in the Dharma and really wanting to practice, and they can't quite completely commit to the practice. And what is it when we look around? What's the thing, the string pulling at their heart that prevents them from really committing to the Dharma?
Attachment?
Yeah, attachment to family. Attachment to family and what family thinks of us. Okay, those two go together. It's not just attachment to the family, but it's attachment to what the family thinks of us. The family wants us to be with them. We don't want them to suffer by being alone. So we go and, and give up our practice, give up whatever it is to be with the family. The family can't say to other people that their son or daughter, whoever it is, mother, father, is devoted to Dharma practice, so they give it up, to please the relative. So attached to what family members think, And we see it, as we we can see it in ourselves. Sometimes the choices we make because of what family members want from us. And we see it with other people too, the choices they make depending on what family wants. And yet family, is just some temporary relationship in this life. It's not like we've had the same family in previous lives and we're going to be related to the same people in future lives. It's just a temporary relationship for a few years in this life. And yet we put so much weight into that and are so concerned about pleasing family members and gaining their approval, not having them disapprove of us, not having them criticize us. And so we change our whole lives to fit in with what we think they want. True or not true? It's true, isn't it? Okay. Then the second Vajra conviction is to keep the constant company of wisdom of our commitments. Okay? So be completely, devoted, whatever commitments and precepts we took, to really treasure those and center our life upon keeping our precepts and commitments. Okay? So here what we abandon is abandon thinking about what others think of us because we practice. Yeah? And because we think that what they want us to do is important. Okay? So, we see again in many conditions. In the first one, people don't go ahead because of with their practice. They have all sorts of hindrances out of attachment to the influence of friends and relatives. And here, you're practicing, but you renegotiate your precepts and commitments based on what other people want you to do and what they think you should do. Yeah. So we hear all the time, I love this one. Yeah. Well, I used to really, drug and drink a lot, and those are the people that I think I can best benefit because I know them so well. So I'm free of drugging and drinking now, but to benefit them, I've got to go to the pub and I've got to go, and smoke or shoot or whatever it is with them to show I'm one of them, because then I can influence them in the Dharma. Yeah? You heard people say that to you? I've heard it plenty of times. Yeah? Especially when it comes even just giving the five precepts to people. It's like, but I can't do the one on intoxicants, because I have family dinners, maybe only once or twice a year, but I've got to drink at the family dinners because otherwise the family will be very upset. They'll think I'm a weirdo. So I can't keep that precept. It will disturb my family. Yeah? So lots of things like that. Okay? So instead of doing like that, to really guard our practice and unify it with our life and keep our precepts in all situations. And then the third Vajra conviction is to carry on continuously without getting caught up in useless concerns. So what we abandon here is attachment to the pleasures of this life. Because we can set up an incredibly good Dharma situation, and then we can't really live in it because we're so attached to other things. Yeah? I think I told you about my one friend I had who built this wonderful retreat place. Yeah, beautiful retreat place, very posh, very comfortable. Then had problems, visa problems, and then became distracted with trying to solve the visa problems of all the other people around her. Yeah? And so never really kind of settled into the retreat that was going to happen. Yeah? So like that, we can set up a good Dharma opportunity, and then friends or family want something, or there's the possibility of having some pleasure from doing something else, and off we go. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with having friends and family and wealth, but the point is that to have the courage to give them up if they're causing us to create negative karma, or if they're drawing us away from our Dharma practice. Yeah. To have the courage of saying, I care about you, but we're cutting the umbilical cord. Yeah. Because the Dharma is what's most important. Okay, so we've gotten through 7 of them. I think we'll pause here and do the last 3 next week. Are there any questions or comments? Yeah.
Isn't there something in Tibetan Buddhism about not touching the body for 3 days or not covering the head at the time of death?
What was the first one? Not what?
Not touching the body for 3 days.
Yeah, Yeah, so they say it's good not to touch the body for 3 days if you can when someone dies. And when you do touch it, to touch the ground. Yeah. Other questions? Or?
Could you read those again? Each one?
Read them again? Okay. So the 4 trusting acceptances. As our innermost outlook on life, being willing to accept the Dharma with total trust. As our innermost attitude towards the Dharma, being willing to accept with total trust, even becoming a beggar. As our innermost attitude towards becoming a beggar, being willing to accept with total trust, even having to die. And as our innermost attitude towards death, being willing to accept with total trust, even having to die friendless and alone in an empty hermitage. Okay, and then the 3 convictions, 3 abandonments, are to go ahead without consideration for what others think, and to abandon the influence of friends and relatives who discourage us from practice. That's the first one. Second one, to keep the constant company of wisdom of our precepts and commitments, and abandon thinking about what other people think of us because we practice, and abandon thinking that what they think about us is important. And then 3, to carry on continuously without getting caught up in useless concerns. So abandon attachment to the pleasures of this life.
Well, as I look at the first 4 again, it does, I mean, in one level it does get more and more difficult, but really if we're doing the first one, to accept the Dharma, total trust, the other would be there.
Yeah.
You know, so this is a very advanced practice.
Yeah. So it looks like each of the 4 are getting deeper, but actually you're saying if we do the first one and accept the Dharma with total trust, then the other 3 become quite easy. And it's true. Yeah.
It seems like too, trusting to that degree, we have to really cultivate such a trust in our own ability, in our potential.
Exactly. So to trust the Dharma like that, we have to trust our own potential, and we have to have the courage to develop that potential.